I think it's very important, though, that we respect other countries' decisions about the issues that they face. You know, India is a sovereign nation. I'm not going to tell India what to do.
I was just reading a report today that in the month of March, Europe has bought, I think, 15% more oil and gas from Russia than it did the month before. If you look at the major buyers of oil and gas from Russia, I think you'd find most of them are in Europe. In terms of our oil purchases, we don't send people out there saying, go buy Russian oil. We send people out there saying, go buy oil. Now, you buy the best oil you can in the market. So I don't think I would attach a political messaging to that.
West seems to be quite vociferous in trying to curtail funding for the war in Ukraine, whereas by purchasing this oil for national interest, India is being asked, are you funding this war?
So, look, I mean, I don't want to sound argumentative, but then tell me if buying Russian gas is not funding the war? I mean, why is it's only Indian money and oil coming to India which funds, but it's not gas coming to Europe which funds? I mean, look, somewhere, I mean, let's be a little even-handed out.
Finally, for the ministers, JAISHANKAR and Singh, why not condemn Russia's invasion? Wouldn't this best reflect India's foreign policy goals and international standing? And what is the leverage that the Indian government has to persuade Vladimir Putin that the carnage that we are seeing every day simply must not stop, that it's not helping the Ukrainian people, and that it's not helping the Russian people?
So, first of all, thank you for the advice and suggestions in your question. I prefer to do it my way and articulate it my way. Now, as Secretary Blinken has pointed out, we have made a number of statements which outline our position in the UN, in our parliament, and in other forums. And briefly, what those positions state is that we are against the conflict, we are for dialogue and diplomacy, we are for urgent cessation of violence, and we are prepared to contribute in whatever way to these objectives. I noticed you refer to oil purchases. If you are looking at energy purchases from Russia, I would suggest that your attention should be focused on Europe, which probably we do buy some energy which is necessary for our energy security. But I suspect, looking at the figures, probably our total purchases for the month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon. So you might want to think about it. Countries in Europe and the West and the United States are so concerned. Why don't they allow Iranian oil to come into the market? Why don't they allow Venezuelan oil to come into the market? I mean, they've squeezed every other source of oil we have. And then say, okay, guys, you must not go into the market and get the best deal for your people. I don't think that's a very fair approach.
Foreign Minister JAISHANKAR, Russia has more and more aligned with China diplomatically, economically, and militarily. How much are you concerned about their alignment in terms of India's national security? With that concern, do you think India has to reduce reliance on Russia economically and militarily as soon as possible? Thank you.
Well, this seems to be my day to get a lot of advice and suggestions from the press, so thank you for joining that. But look, we watch what's happening in the world like any country does, and we draw our conclusions and make our assessments. And believe me, we have a decent sense of what is in our interest and know how to protect it and advance it. So I think part of what has changed is we have more options than we did before. I will look at us today. We are standing here for a 2+2 with a substantial defense collaboration which has happened in the last decade, which we have been discussing how to take forward. And this wasn't an option which was there for 40 years before that. So the world is changing. The world will keep changing. What we have to do in our profession is to watch it and, see how your interests are best advanced in that. Again, I don't want this whole subject to go off on a sort of a political note. Every country looks at its best options, and I think today an expanding India-US energy relationship, which by the way didn't exist some years ago. If my memory is right, you are the second largest LNG supplier to India, I think the fourth or the fifth largest crude oil supplier, a big partner in the renewable side, including the agreement which Secretary Blinken just mentioned. So we have, there is so much more going on in the world today, and a large part of it is really to fully explore the opportunities between India and the United States.
With India counting on global support in its struggle with China, its issues with China, how do you think you'll be trusted by others after that? Why do you think anyone will help Delhi after you didn't help others over Ukraine?
It's an interesting question which you might, not you meaning you personally, but people might want to ask themselves, because if I were to take Europe collectively, which has been singularly silent on many things which were happening, for example in Asia, you could ask, why would anybody in Asia trust Europe on anything at all? Today Europe is buying oil, Europe is buying gas. I just read the new package of sanctions. Now the package is designed in a way in which consideration has been given to the welfare of the population. So, pipelines have a certain carve-out. And timelines have been given. It's not like tomorrow morning everything's going to be cut off. So people need to understand, if you can be considerate of yourself, surely you can be considerate of other people. So if a Europe says, look, we have to manage it in a way in which its impact on my economy is not traumatic, that freedom or that choice should exist for other people as well. Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. That if it is you, it's yours. If it is me, it's ours.
Whenever any country sends an embassy anywhere abroad, it is the obligation of the receiving country to provide the security for a diplomat to do their work. It is the obligation of the receiving country to ensure that the embassy or the High Commission or the consulate, their premises are respected. Okay? These obligations were not met. That day when those, I would say vandals appeared before the High Commission, what was our expectation was not there in terms of security for the High Commission. So we've had conversations with the British government after that. I think the next time it happened, you saw things were a little bit different. But it is our expectation. As I said, many countries are very casual about it. They have a different view about their own security and a different view about other people's security. But I can tell you, as foreign minister, we are not going to accept these kinds of differential
linkage today which is being made. A linkage between China and India and what's happening in Ukraine. So come on, guys. China and India happened way before anything happened in Ukraine. We have a difficult relationship with China. We're perfectly capable of managing it. It's if I get global understanding and support, obviously it is of help to me. But this idea that I do a transaction, that I come in one conflict because it will help me in conflict too, that's not how the world works. So a lot of our problems in China have nothing to do with Ukraine, have nothing to do with Russia. They predate it. I think it's an interesting point you raise, because historically there is a reason why West and democracy were equated. But over a period of time, I think the West needs to outgrow that, because today more people live in non-Western democracies than in Western democracies. So, still we are all creatures of habit. So we use shorthand formulations even if they are anachronistic. So I take your point, but I think part of Westlessness is a kind of, the West has to understand this larger rebalance, as I said, the rebalancing. The fact that even democracy today, there are people in other continents who own it and claim it as strongly as people in Europe or North America do.
I think
No, I'm part of the East, I'm part of the South, I'm part of the West, I'm universal. I'm India.
Shankar, there will always be two axes at this point. I think it's an understood, accepted fact that you have the West, US-led, you have China as the next potential axis. Where does India fit into this? But are you planning to not pick a
No,
side?
I'm sorry. That is exactly where I disagree with you. This is the construct you are trying to impose on me, and I don't accept it. I mean, I don't think it's necessary for me to join this axis or not, and if I'm not joining this, I must be with the other one. I don't accept that. I mean, I think I'm 1/5 of the world's population. I am today the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. I mean, forget the history, civilization bit, everybody knows that. But I think I'm entitled to have my own side, I'm entitled to weigh my own interests, make my own choices. And my choices will not be cynical and transactional, but they will be a balance of my values and my interests. There is no country in the world which disregards its interests.